All right, so now that we have our handle set, we're going to put our rod guides on. We've already put one on, but there's a little bit of a process with this. What you want to do is what I use is a Dremel. You don't need a Dremel. You can get anything you can kind of grind down metal with to use. The Dremel's just easy. But what we're gonna do is on guide foots, whenever they come from the store, you'll see we're gonna grind all along the edges of this. So that way, whenever it's on the rod blank, it sits flush and it's a nice transition with the thread from the rod blank to over the eye. So all our guide feet are grinded down. Now we already went and we marked. You can see the little mark right here. We already went and we marked where all our rod guides are gonna go. So now all that's left to do is wrap them in thread and get them on there. I'm only gonna do one of these, show you one of these because it's just real tedious and there's no point. It's just gonna be a bunch of extra minutes of footage. So I'm just gonna do one, show you how we wrap them, and that'll be it. So whenever I wrap guides, I'm gonna try and secure it down to the blank. This is with tape, but I also use for like smaller guides, I'll use these little rubber bands, little rubber rings. And then it's pretty simple and self-explanatory after that. We're just gonna wrap it to the blank. Go around once, then I'll overlap my thread that I'm feeding on there. Spin it, and after a few turns, it'll stop slipping. And then, make sure we're stacking neatly here. Personal rod, and this is black thread, so it's gonna hide any imperfections in thread as far as like overlapping. So I'm not actually, it's gonna be a little overlap here. It's not gonna be perfect in terms of executed, but it's gonna look perfect whenever we apply epoxy on there. There we go, spun it. All right. Now, take our tape off. Okay, cut this tag end. Keep it over somewhere. It's easy to grab. Spin it some more. Now with our tag end, make like a little loop here. Feed it in. And we're gonna wrap it up some to about right there. Apply some pressure. Hook it, cut it. Now that loop right there that we have, don't know how well you can see that. We're gonna feed our tag in through that loop. Pull it, and then the loose ends right here, this string, these two loose ends, I'll pull it. Once it's kind of tucked in there just a little bit, cut it. Uh-oh, what happened? Cut it once we get it there. Typically, I'm gonna use some type of tool here. Wrap it around and pull it through. That's gonna secure the guide. It's a close-up. You can kind of move the thread here and there with your fingernails like I do. But once you put epoxy on that, it's gonna be nice and smooth and solid black. All right, so we have our two-part epoxy rod guide finish mixed up. It's gonna be Gen 4. It's 1-to-1. It's 3 cc's to 3 cc's, part A, part B. Now we're gonna apply it to a rod guide. Again, this is a personal rod, so I'm gonna show you how I do it on my personal builds, but when I do a personal build, it's really just function over looks for me, but let's get into it. All right, so we have our rod guide here. Now I'm just gonna do one guide and I'm gonna do the rest off camera. But whenever I do it, I'm gonna get a nice dollop. It's spinning away from me. I'm gonna run it and I'm gonna get my edges. So I have my edge here, and then once I get an edge of that epoxy, I'm gonna work it up. I'll get another little dollop, let it fall on the thread, work it around, get my edge here. Get it nice and in there. And then I'll get another dollop and work in the middle and fill it all in. Once that's in there, what I like to do usually is I do all my guides and then I come back with heat. So, but for this one, we're gonna come in here. We got a heat gun here. Got it set on my medium setting. We're gonna get all the little air bubbles out of here. It's gonna drip. I typically apply heavier coats, so it's gonna drip some for me, more than others. And then you'll see it's hanging a little bit. We'll move it, spread it out. And that's all it takes. I'll watch and make sure that air bubbles don't form in these pockets where the foot meets and the kind of guide epoxy is filling in that space. But I'll do a close-up here and show you what it looks like. You can see it's spinning around. See, there's some little gaps in the thread, but personal build, I'm not too mad about that. It's gonna do what it's designed to do, and that's catch fish. All right, so we're gonna get the rest of the rod guides done, and then I'll show you how we apply our rod decal. And for this one, we're literally just gonna write the rod specs, which is just 2 to 4 pound line. That's all we're gonna write, but I'll show you how we do that first. But I'm gonna show you how I do it right here where we do our hook keeper section. All right, so we're back out in the garage. This is like day 3 working on this rod. So our last final touches is we're gonna add our decal here. And for this, for a personal rod, I didn't get a rod decal spec sheet made, so we're just gonna hand write 2 to 4 pounds on it. We're gonna do it all right here in this front section. Zoom in for y'all. But for this, a lot of times I'm just eyeing it, right? I'm just eyeing it, trying to get it as straight as I can. We got the reel seat. This is gonna be the reel facing up off of it right here. So this is actually gonna be the bottom half of the rod. We'll go ahead and we'll wait to do the 2 to 4 just so we don't smear anything if we're cleaning it off. See this? We have a little bitty raised edge, or not edge, but a little bump right there. Get a razor, and anywhere you see that, you can just take a razor and cut it out. I think that's actually my only one on this rod. Now, we got our decal. Luckily, a lot of reel seats, I don't know if you can see it, but a lot of reel seats, they come with a line on top too, right? So on a spinning reel, I know that's gonna be the top kind of straight axis. And that's the one that we wanna apply this decal and make sure that it's even and correct and straight with. So that's what it's gonna look like. This has got transfer tape. All the decals I get custom made, I get them from Decal Connection. Try not to get fingerprints on the sticker itself. Getting it on the transfer tape's fine. I'm gonna stand up. Gonna get around it here. I'm looking down that top of the reel seat. I want it to be centered both long ways in and straight ways. That's pretty center right there, so we're gonna go with it. I'm gonna apply it down. I just rub my finger all over it. And then lift up the corner of the transfer tape. Peel it back. Oh, some sticky residue from it. Just get it off with your hands. Boom. You can see what it looks like. It's gonna be backwards for y'all, but that's pretty good, pretty square, pretty centered. So now what we're gonna do is come in here. Just got like a little marker here. I'm just gonna write 2 to 4. Custom rod for myself. I really don't need to write this. I know what it's rated for. We're gonna write that. Then all that's left to do is epoxy over that, but I'm gonna show y'all, but I'll go ahead and I'll show y'all how we do a TipTop guide. All right, so for this, we have a rod glue stick. We have the TipTop guide we want to put, and then we have a lighter. Now there's 2 ways that I do TipTop guides. If they're a big guide, I'll actually cut shavings off, stuff it in the TipTop, and then I'll heat the TipTop up, it will melt the glue, and then I'll shove it on there. But something like this with super small diameter on these ultralights, super small diameter in that TipTop tube, what I'll do is I'll heat up the tube, we'll smear all over the TipTop, and then we'll press it on. So that's what we're gonna do right now. Use this lighter, Get it all warm and melted. Strands, and we're gonna shove it on there. I'll pull it off to like drag some glue out for it. Put it all the way on there, and the last thing you're gonna do is I'm gonna make sure it's lined up. Straight. That's straight enough for me. Now, sometimes too, with TipTop guides, what you can do is I'll do a little thread section, or like for these little ultralights and my personal builds, I don't do a lot of extra stuff on them. I'll just do a little tiny bead of epoxy to shut the gap of where the rod blank is and where the TipTop guide slides over. That little bead, I feel like, kind of just holds the TipTop on there just a little bit better. All right, and then two, we see how we push up this ball of glue. Once it gets dry, just come in here with your fingers and you can just literally come in here and break it off. Ooh. All right, so we're on the final step, which is our last layer, or our last application of epoxy. We got our two-part epoxy mixed up, and I'm just gonna bang them out real quick and hit them with some heat. My last layer of epoxy, especially over these decals, I'll go really heavy. All right, so here's the finished product. Got a little 1000 size reel on there with 6-pound tests. Kept it super simple, as you can see. Handwriting, black guides. Got a lot of projects going on right now. Or not a lot, but we're finishing up. Now these little 2 to 4, y'all check this action out. Just absolute whip and stick. But yeah, so that's it, start to finish. Check it out, build one for yourself. You might like it.